Welcome to the CodeX Cantina. I am Una.
And I am the crypto. A crypto? Your crypto?
You're the crypto, and you're doing it again. You gotta say the chapter part.
Oh, what chapters are we doing? I've read so many in the last 2 days. 5 through 8. Yes.
We are doing fine. You should know. You just cram these in. You had a little bit of a last minute emergency of trying to cram this in, like the students that you teach.
Yes, I think this helped me though to be fresh in my brain because there is so much to digest. There's so much to go on, and it doesn't have the typical Faulkner feel to it of repetition and surrealness, but the story is picking up pace like a race. No pun intended. Yes, pun intended. But I'm enjoying the book as usual. I love the book, but I almost wish we would have cut it one chapter because there's so much going on.
What I have planned is we'll do 2 chapters, 9 and 10 next, and then we'll do 11 through 13.
Awesome.
To kind of break it up, and then also we could potentially break in some more short stories rather than trying to jam so much text into 1 week.
All right.
So yeah, definitely less humor, less heritage, less flowery writing, more animals. These chapters, right?
Yeah, a lot more animals, a lot more dialogue, and a lot more prostitutes.
Definitely. All right, so let's jump into quotes.
Quote, "Don't beat it all how much a fellow can learn in what a short time about something he not only never knowed before, he never even had no idea he would ever want to know it, let alone would find it useful to him for the rest of his life, providing he kept it, never let it get away from him."
I had that one too.
Yeah, we always seem to have the same ones.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But I like this one because I feel like it's trying to get a message across with some of that flowery language, but he's also trying to just hit it home that you can't unlearn things, is so to speak. And I think this is what some people say not so elegantly as, ignorance is bliss. Is kind of what I think that is. But go ahead.
I had, because women are wonderful, they can bear anything because they are wise enough to know that all you have to do with grief and trouble is just go on through them and come out on the other side. I think they can do this because they not only decline to dignify physical pain by taking it seriously, they have no sense of shame at the idea of being knocked out.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to talk about this now or later. So when I was reading on the Kindle, it had this one highlighted where a whole bunch of other people had highlighted it. I thought that was very interesting, and I wanted to know your thoughts on that. Or if you want to do that in talking points later, we can. But
I could tell you why I picked it.
Okay.
My mom never complains, ever. She is very, very a woman of the time from when she was raised. And one day when she went to go work out, she stepped on the treadmill, and the person that was on the treadmill before her left it running, and it actually flipped her over, and she crushed her lower lumbar. She broke her back on the treadmill, and it spit her out. Ambulance came, rushed her to the hospital. Right, I was in Indiana. She was in Chicago at the time. I was freaking out driving back.
Of course.
But that night, she said, "I'll be fine. You guys go home. You get some sleep." And when my dad came back the next day, this is heartbreaking. My mom never complains. She will never say something's wrong or that she's in pain. The first thing she told my dad when he got there, she said, "Kill me."
Oh.
And what happened was the morphine, you press this, she had this little trigger. You just press the button for it to inject morphine when you're feeling pain. She was pressing it. The morphine cable, the drip, whatever you call it, fell out. So she was laying in the bed with a broken back with no pain meds.
Oof.
And didn't hit the nurse button.
Wow.
That is someone who can look at pain and look at death and walk through it. if she needed to get to her family or something like that, my mom would walk through it. And this quote, even though it was about Miss Reba, when she just kind of just found out that shocking news that we'll get into in the plot, I saw my mom when I read this quote. So I'm sure there's other readers out there that have that mom, that figure in their life. That's who I viewed when I read this.
And so I thought it was interesting. I mean, I know why most people highlighted this one. My wife, hopefully she never watched this one because she's way too pretty for me and way too smart for me. And then my mom, and my mom is like one of the most amazing people I know besides maybe my wife. And yeah, it's like my mom kind of went through a similar thing. She went through a really bad divorce with my stepfather, my sister's dad. And
Okay.
She was not feeling well, and so she went to the doctor, and basically she had a heart attack. And they're like, yeah, we can see you had a heart attack a couple of years ago. And this is when my stepfather was in and out of a halfway house and rehab for drugs and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, like she'd had a heart attack and just like shrugged it off. And they were like, yeah, there's scar tissue around your heart and you may have to have surgery one day. And so, yeah, like she had a heart attack and was just like, shrug it, nah, not doing that today. Gonna keep moving on with life. I got 2 kids.
Yeah.
So, like, she's a tough lady, like your mom, obviously. So, yeah, women are definitely the stronger of the sexes, I believe. So that's
there's something about when you have a kid, a woman's body goes through some transformation, and she is 10 times stronger than what she was before.
Oh, they're superheroes.
They were strong before, so.
Yeah, especially to put up with people like us.
Oh yeah. My wife's upstairs right now. All right, hit me with your next quote.
All right, so my other quote is, he was a conservative like this. A Republican is a man who made his money. A liberal is a man who inherited his. A Democrat is a barefooted liberal in a cross-country race. A conservative is a Republican who has learned to read and write. Now, tell me if that isn't dated.
No kidding. I actually, when I read that, I was like, ooh.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we don't want to get too political on the channel here, but wow, is that dated? Like,
oh, yeah.
None of that is correct for nowadays.
Oh, it's... Mm-hmm. Was Mr. Binford your favorite character?
No.
Okay.
I didn't like him. I don't like a lot of the characters, actually.
Dude, you had a thing for kind of like the dickheads.
I know, but I felt like his was unjustified. No, I do. Like, I feel like his is... So there's 2 characters that I think are dickheads that I normally would probably like, but I think they're just... Like, you got to be a dickhead and have a purpose, and you have to know why you're a dickhead. And Butch... later in the story, and this guy, Benford, am I saying that right?
Mr. Binford, that's what I say. I don't
Binford, know. Okay. I know it was Ben or Ben. I feel like they're just dickheads to be dickheads.
Well, you've got that long story with Mr. Binford. I'm not saying it justifies it. I mean, I'm not saying anything justifies being a jerk. But you did have that long story where it talked about how he is the man that holds that house together. In terms of paying off the law, in terms of, paying the taxes, in terms of bringing all the people together, in terms of understanding and being able to negotiate. There's a huge long paragraph there, and I'm not saying they're all wonderful characteristics or that the fact that a brothel house leader should be praised, but they did give him a little bit more of a backstory to say that I got the impression that he's under a lot of stress and being pulled a lot of different ways. Not that it excuses it, but he did have some of that story there where, yeah, he's a dick, but I can kind of see where it's coming from. Like a guy that's gone through that or lives that life, I'm like, yeah, he's probably going to be a dick, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Never really thought about that. I know, and I almost felt for him, and I almost wanted to like his character, because there was one point, I think it says, like, he left the house and he went and worked to get money back for them or something, and he was like slaving away. And who was it? the lady with the gold tooth, right?
Minnie.
Minnie went to get him and like begged him to come back on her knees, right? So they have a. Here's my issue with it. They have a complex relationship in that house. Everybody does, and I don't know all the inner workings. I don't know the bad things that they've done to him and how they've treated him. All I get is perspective of this guy being a jerk and calling these people horrible names in front of a 11-year-old boy, and then I get some backstory, and I'm supposed to like sympathize with him. So
No. I don't think that's what you're supposed to do.
okay, well, you're saying I am, me specifically. You're saying I'm supposed to.
I'm just
because
saying
I like the dicks. Wait,
you like the dick.
Cut that out.
You like the dick. You like the dick. That's what it is you like the dick. All right, let me hit you with a quote that we're going to come back to. I think if I don't completely lose my thoughts here, we'll come back to a couple times.
Okay.
There are things, circumstances, conditions in the world which should not be there but are, and you can't escape them, and indeed, you would not escape them, even if you had the choice, since they too are a part of motion, of participating in life, being alive, but they should arrive with grace and decency. Did you pick that quote as well?
Nope.
Did you notice motion was capitalized several times?
I did not.
So, I mean, with the grammar here, I can understand, but there are very deliberate parts in this text where motion is capitalized. And right here, he describes they are part of motion, capitalized, of participating in life, being alive. So he's using motion in that context in each of these parts, that when you read it, he's saying that that's in motion. He's saying this is part of life. This is living life. This is part of the tale of old Lucius telling the young grandkids, here's what I went through in my life. Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that. Yeah, I like that.
Brings out a lot when you're reading this.
Could it be just like before, like the motion of the car, the motion of the horse, the motion of the story?
That's going to bring me to my second talking point.
Okay.
I'm tying it all. I masterfully tied this all together today here for you, Crypto.
Okay, I'm impressed.
All right.
Never cease to amaze.
Plot. All right, Chapter 5. We arrive at the bordello owned by Mr. Binford and operated by Miss Reba. Mr. Binford says harsh things but is ultimately silenced when his mistake of gambling away money comes out from Otis, who is Miss Corey's nephew. Ned arrives with a horse in the backyard. Chapter 6. Ned tells him that he traded the automobile for the horse, but plans to win back the car by racing the horse and winning. The horse has already lost several times, but Ned has trained a mule to run, so he's sure he can train this horse. Miss Reba and Boone realize at the same time that the horse is stolen. They call Sam from the railroad to help them smuggle it to Parsham. Chapter 7. Boone acts protective over Miss Corey to Sam. Sam still helps them and loads the horse on the train. They head back to the brothel. I'm going to say bordel. It's too hard for me to pronounce that word. Where Lucius learns Otis was selling views into a peephole of his aunt banging. Lucius gets in a fight and has a knife drawn on him. The fight is broken up, and they make plans to send Otis home after learning the news. Miss Corey sees a new light, having seen a person stand up for her for the first time in her life. And Boone gets no nookie. Chapter 8. The next morning, they head to Parsham. Uncle Parsham greets them along with Sheriff Butch. Ned starts training the horse to make him run faster, and I think it's a little kludgy as to whether he was doped or not, because I'll read the text here when we're done. But he's training the horse, Lightning, to run, and Lucius to ride as the jockey, and that's what's in the text.
They were going to see who was better on the horse, Otis or Lucius.
Otis wanted money for it.
Yeah, Otis wanted
$10.
Yeah, and then he upped it to $20.
And that's when Ned got down. He said, "You're not going to run that horse, are you?" And he said, "No, I'm not."
Yeah.
I don't know if Otis was afraid to run. But I got the impression that he didn't want to, and he was just going to keep charging more and more money. And I think Ned just called him out on it. So he's like, "All right, Lucius, you're up."
Yeah, I think that he didn't know how to ride a horse because he's like, "Do you know how to ride a horse?" And he's like, "I live in this county. What do you think?" And he's like, "That didn't answer the question. Do you know how to ride a horse?"
Oh.
So I think
Did he never answer it directly?
he never answered it directly. Yeah, so I think that he didn't know how to ride a horse, and I mean, yeah, but
Okay. And then maybe you can clarify this for me, but they said, "Don't you know it's against the law to dope a horse for a race? Maybe you folks down there in them swamps ain't heard about it, but it's so. We got horse doctors in Mississippi, though," Ned said. "Send for one of them to come and see if he's been doped." Sure, sure, Butch said. "Only why did you give it to him a day ahead of the race? To see if it would work?" "That's right," Ned said. "If I give him nothing, which I ain't, which if you know horses, you already knows." So I interpreted that as him getting doped like a day early, and then that way it'd be out of his system beforehand, but maybe you could interpret it as that he didn't? I don't know. How did you take it?
I interpreted that he didn't. That he said that he doesn't have nothing. I ain't done that. But we'll see.
But he said, if I give him nothing, which I ain't. So he didn't give him nothing.
Yeah, it's a double negative then?
I don't know. Well,
That's tough writing.
It might become more clear here in the next few chapters, but kind of I'm not sure which way to interpret it at this point, and I know we stopped at 8. I'm sure if we kept reading, we would maybe get that clarification.
Yeah, or maybe somebody knows, they can put in the comments below if they know definitively.
Yeah. All right, so discussion. I wanted to ask you, so we're talking about this being a coming-of-age story, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think Lucius learns in these chapters? So let me break these down. Mr. Binford. This is what to our earlier quotes, this is what I think Mr. Binford's purpose was to teach Lucius something. What do you think Lucius learned from Mr. Binford?
I think he learned about women.
I think he learned about how to treat women, about social sensibilities, if you will.
Yeah, I like that.
Right? And this isn't the first time he's done this. He has that line where he says, "Across the street to Bertie Watts, maybe she'll let you bring your trunk back with you this time, unless she's already sold it," which implies that he's been a jerk before driving them off to the house across the street.
Yeah, and kind of like we said before, obviously they have a very complex relationship, and Lucius is seeing this all unfold. So he, is very impressionable at 11 years old, and he's seeing people other than his grandparents and his parents of how they interact with one another that are not related, that obviously have a very close relationship.
Yeah, and we've all seen those people. Like, he was being a jerk at that point in time because he lost all that money. Mm-hmm. He was taking his aggression, bad day at work, taking it out on the family when he got home. We've all seen people like that in our lives.
We've all maybe been there.
What did he learn from Ned in this chapter?
I think that one's tough. From Ned.
Well, I think there's a lot going on with Ned. These are the Ned chapters, are they not?
These Ned... are, yeah. And I really started to like Ned when you were asking earlier, like, who's your favorite character and stuff. Like, I love Ned in here. He's great. He is resourceful. He's positive. He is trying to make the best out of what he sees as a bad situation to kind of make it twofold. So the car's been stolen basically by them, and he's trying to get the guy his car and a horse, and maybe money, and I don't know. I think that Ned is obviously the star of these chapters.
Yeah, and I think what Lucius is seeing for the first time is him leaving his town and seeing how Ned's treated by people that aren't family, right? Mm-hmm. You saw where Ned had to sleep, right? He couldn't sleep at the bordel.
Yep, he's not allowed.
When it came to the leaving the horse in the boxcar overnight, remember Sam was like, "You're going to leave him with this colored boy?" You saw a little bit of racism. You saw a little bit of passive racial discrimination where they talked about sundown and any cop will stop him on the street. That goes back to the Jim Crow laws, where there are certain towns in the South where people of color were not allowed to be out after dark.
Yeah, they had curfews.
They're not allowed to sleep in certain spots, right? He couldn't sleep at the bordel. There used to be a green book. I think they even made a movie about that here recently.
Yep.
Where it was the book that kind of told, it was a guide to help, people understand where can I safely stay, eat, because I can't always get service if I was born of a different color and I'm going in the South. So I think you're seeing Lucius kind of experience that a little bit here for the first time.
Yeah, because we're under the impression that the Priest family is a little bit more forward thinking, and they may be racists, but it never really says that, and they obviously treat Ned much better than a lot of other people treat, other races and ethnicities at this time period. And yeah, he's definitely experiencing the outside world of how people of different colors are treated. And I think that's very shocking to him because he doesn't understand that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you even get a little bit of a counterbalance too with Uncle Parsham, where they kind of talked about his imperial mustache, and he's treated with a little bit more respect in that town, like he's a man that's kind of made it. So I think what's nice is that you don't just get the negative, but you get some positives too, which I think is why you can't. I don't think you can view, while you can view William Faulkner as dated, you can view him as having lived through some times where people thought awful things and weren't as politically correct or fair than how we are today. I don't think you can paint William Faulkner, in my opinion, as a racist.
Yeah, he probably wasn't himself. I mean, he may have been, but he doesn't write that way.
He had a very famous quote when Emmett Till, right?
Oh yeah, teach that every year.
So he had a very famous quote that says, "Does America deserve to survive?" when that happened.
Oh well, then yeah, that's obviously
and that's popped up. That's popped up a lot more here with Trump, right? I've seen that quote pop up again when we see some of these difficult situations pop up.
I mean, obviously, I know that all happened down there, but I didn't know that he was so maybe involved or he knew anything about it and stuff, because it was pretty regional. I mean, it became eventually national news, but it was very regional until those pictures. His mom released those pictures of Emmett and what his face used to look like and what it was. So that's good on him. But yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, that says a lot about him. But I mean, I don't know if we can assume that just because that's how Faulkner felt, that's how he would write, because he's writing characters. He's not writing himself. So, but I mean, your writing does obviously bleed into your stories. But still, I mean, a good writer can separate himself from that. And he rarely uses the N-word in the writing, and it's usually used to make a point. So being that he uses it sparingly, I would definitely agree with that statement.
Some of the other minor points that I felt, kind of going back to our point on Lucius, I thought he learned a little bit about if you start a fight, you better finish it, both with the knife fight, and then also kind of seeing what Ned's going through, where he's done this really stupid thing with the car and the horse.
And he's got to follow through with it.
He's got to follow through, and that's what Lucius is doing with his lie too, right? He started this lie, and you had that wonderful quote about how you have to keep telling lies just to cover up the old ones, how it's like trying to prop a feather up in the sand, and the sand just keeps moving. Mm-hmm. He's going through the exact same experience. So
I also think to add on to that is he realizes that he's no longer a boy. He knows he's not quite a man yet, so he's entering what we would call in modern time his pre-teen era. He's a preen, and that he doesn't know enough of everything yet, because obviously, like when Otis told him what was going on in the brothel, he was mortified and wanted to kick the crap out of the kid as a result, because he's learning about sex for the very first time, and he's horrified by it, right? And he's seeing all these other things happen. He's seeing, like you said, the way of the world. He's seeing how men and women interact. He's seeing how racism truly is in the South, and he says he's homesick. He's like, has it been a day or a year? So he's going through some traumatic experiences for an 11-year-old kid that's kind of been kidnapped, sort of.
Well, he made the choice. Did he not? I mean, Boone said, "Do you want to turn around? I'll turn around if you want."
No, come on. That's not fair. You're an 11-year-old boy. You just stole your grandfather's car, and you're hot rodding down the road with, like, basically your best friend, who is some creepy old guy that may or may not be fully functioning. And he's going to throw that at you. Like, you're going to be like, "No, I'm a man. We're going for it." Like,
oh yeah, you're going on that adventure for sure.
Yeah, you're going on an adventure for sure. So
it was a hard choice. I think what you're saying is it was a hard choice.
Okay, so maybe he's making his first young adult choices that will have real consequences, I'm sure, by the end of this book.
Yeah. Well, another good reason why we went through 8 was this quote right here from Lucius. "I was a child no longer now. Innocence and childhood were forever lost, forever gone from me."
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. That one's great.
Yeah. That is a coming of age quote.
That could sum up basically all the way through 8 at this point in time. This whole adventure is that right there.
Now, I thought this part was really interesting. Did you notice Ned's hierarchy of animals based on intelligence?
Oh, I loved that part. That was great.
Is that not fascinating, the way that came out? I wrote down the quote, "I rate mules only second to rats in intelligence."
I was wondering where did Faulkner get all of this? And what is its deeper meanings? I couldn't ascertain what it was.
Well, let's talk through this. I'm not saying I have the answer, but I've got opinions.
Okay.
But this is what he said about intelligence. Okay, so first he says, "I rate mules only second to rats in intelligence." Mm-hmm. And this is going to come back to, I think last week we talked about what does the car represent. Mm-hmm. Got a lot more animals in this chapter, right?
Oh, animals.
I think these are actually more connected than what we originally gave them credit for.
Okay.
So he defines intelligence as, which is the ability to cope with environment, which means to accept environment yet still retain at least something of personal liberty.
Before we get into any of the animals, interesting enough that he doesn't ever mention humans. We're not even on the list. What is Faulkner saying there?
Yeah. Let's talk about that, right?
We're the worst animal there is.
Well, okay. So first of all, the top of the list, interestingly enough, is rats.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
And he says that they're lazy and sustained by others. Essentially, well, he didn't say lazy. I said lazy. They are sustained by others, right? They let others take care of things, yet they can do whatever they want. They don't pay for taxes. They don't help clean. They just eat the food, and they give nothing in return, and therefore they are the highest level of intelligence. Then you have mules, right, which are bright enough to put their own interests first, right? They're not going to run if they don't want to. They're patient to work for 10 years before finally getting that kick in the ass for their bosses. And then earlier, remember what what's his name?
Boone.
Remember what happened at Hell Creek?
Oh, yeah.
What did he say the mules were?
Colorblind.
So again, to our previous point about, what was Faulkner racist or not, he's saying that the intelligent animals here, at least some of them, are colorblind, right? Cats, parasites on humans, but don't love you.
That was funny, because I don't like cats, so that was hilarious. That was good. I actually laughed out loud at that. I was like, that's so true. Like, we need to insert cat meme right here.
And then dogs, and then this made me laugh too, where he was describing dogs. And he said his failure is that he's a sycophant.
Don't die.
Oh, I just thought it was so funny. I did. He will debase and violate his own dignity for your amusement.
Love dogs.
I'm not really a dog person, but that just cracks me up the way that he says that. And then horses, he says, are dumb and they'll break their leg if you tell them to. They'll follow anyone. Little for themselves, while rats are all for themselves and get everything from everyone else. So I think this says a lot about what we've even read in the last few chapters. Because remember your quote last week on cars being the fastest way to reach the wilderness, but the wilderness escapes it or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. And then basically everything's urbanizing. Yeah.
So I think cars are obviously the modern way forward, and horses were yesterday's way of life. But I think Faulkner points to mules and animals as still a majestic return to the old way of life. I think he glorifies them in a sense. And I went back to that chapter, the Hell Creek chapter, after reading this hierarchy of animals, and I pulled out some quotes about the car that I think you'll find interesting. So
Hit me.
So the car he described as so huge and so immobile. The cars were fixed in a foundational mass. And then guess what word he brings up? Motion with a capital M.
Now, are there any motion with a capital M through the animals when he's listing off all the animals?
I didn't. I think I just went back to that section.
Okay.
Because one of the things I wanted to see was how did he describe the car when it was when it's there, and he says it's huge, mobile, immobile, kind of mocking it in a sense, because guess how they're rescued?
By mules.
Mules, right? The mules pull them out, and then guess how you describe how fast a car is?
Horsepower.
By horsepower. Yeah. So I think we have a precedence for Faulkner establishing reliability with the old traditional ways, with the animals, and longing for the wilderness where the cars are the future, they're the way forward, but you're always going to be longing for that wilderness. You're going to be longing for that old way of life that was reliable and still got you what you needed to. So I thought that was kind of interesting to overlay those two sections and think about how he kind of what words he chose to use in those two sections.
Yeah, and the modern equivalent of that is obviously, and I've seen this meme many times before on like social media where it says, 25 years ago we used the internet to escape, and now we go to the wilderness to escape the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically that Faulkner quote, is it not?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think it's obviously a fine line between trying to have, maybe the best of both worlds, and obviously Faulkner was living through a very transitional period in our history where technology was dwarfing the old ways of life and literally revolutionizing the world.
There was an interview I read with him, and he talked about reincarnation. And he said that if he came back, he'd come back as this specific animal. It's a really strange animal.
Anteater?
You know what he picked? No. He picked
Elephant?
a buzzard. He picked a buzzard.
Buzzard?
Because nobody bothers them. Nobody pays them any attention. They go about doing their thing, and no one seems to get in their way.
Interesting.
I think our boy Faulkner might have been a little bit of an introvert there.
Yeah, I think very much of an introvert. Yeah. Huh.
Now, here's another interesting thing. So I think I've told you multiple times that I've read the Snopes trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
This made me rethink this hierarchy of animals' intelligence, because it made me rethink he constantly compared, particularly the boys of the Snopes, Abner and Flem, to rats. Throughout that whole book, rats. And I constantly thought it was because they're kind of like vile heroes. They're anti-heroes. Like, they're ambitious people. They get things done. You kind of love them, but you kind of hate them at the same time. And I thought rats was one of those ways to kind of bring down. I'm kind of questioning that now. When he says that the rats had the highest intelligence because they figured out a way to survive by letting others do the work. Go back and, you haven't read the Snopes trilogy, but it'd be interesting to go back and read the Snopes trilogy now and think about the Snopes from being the ambitious people of getting what they want by letting others kind of do their bidding for them, if you will. Very interesting.
A backhanded
Much
compliment,
different.
then.
Yeah. Yeah, much different from how I took it at the time, especially after now seeing it. Now, this book came out after the Snopes trilogy. I mean, obviously, it's his last book, right? So it's just kind of something that's really interesting that I never understood why people went back and just like read Faulkner, but I'm understanding more and more and more. Even in these sections, there's actually a part where he described some trees where they said the trees were locust and some other tree. I don't remember what it was. But I remember when I was reading Barn Burning for this channel a couple weeks back, he referenced locust and mulberry trees. And I assume he was talking about locusts, the creatures, and mulberry trees, like the mulberry tree, where mulberry trees being a representative of death, locust being a representative of death. I now wonder if he was talking about locust trees, because I've now have precedents where in another book of his, he said locust and like another type of tree. So very interesting when you can kind of cross these books together and pull out different things from them.
Yeah, for sure. Not to beat a dead horse. Had to get in there at least once.
All right. I'll give it to you.
The ranking of the animals, do you think they represented anything tangible? Like, was Faulkner trying to make maybe a point about rats are one of the specific races or political parties, or that? What do you think there's anything deeper besides? I mean, because yours is pretty deep, but do you think there's anything, maybe something not deep, like it was just something superficial of like?
So one of the things off the top of my head was I think this is a breakdown, arguably, of human classes.
Yeah.
At the time, in terms of the aristocrats. So there's a quote from Abner Snopes where he talks about people didn't build that house with white sweat. They built it with colored sweat, meaning that he had the other people do the work for him. That's the rat. That's the aristocrat at the top. And I think when you start going further and further down, you have like the lowest class of people that, that guy that will do anything and break his back for the sycophant they'll break their back for other people or make themselves look fools for others' entertainment. Those are usually considered lower class. I viewed it as kind of more of like a class breakdown.
All right.
Was what one of my thoughts were.
I kind of like that one better, to be honest. From Ned's point of view, that makes more sense. From Faulkner's point of view, maybe his personal life, the other argument makes sense.
Oh yeah. I think they're both. There's just different ways to look at it, and who's to say one's right or the other? I'll put it out there and I'll let you guys discuss it.
It's yours.
All right. So one of the things we talked about doing was keeping a running list of stuff stolen.
Okay. So in this one, we start off with is it actually stolen, the 15 cents or the 25 cents? Would you count that? Like, there's the betting money, right?
Let's count it.
Because I was
25 cents stolen.
Right, because the amount of money was kind of stolen. The horse is stolen. Mm-hmm. They're stealing a ride on the train, right? I don't know if you count that. What else? What else does he have?
So let's limit it. Let's limit to physical things stolen.
Okay.
I think if I understood when they were loading the train, which was funny by the way, I think they stole the chicken ladder. They talked about taking it and don't mind that, like they won't miss it or something to that effect.
Okay.
Did you pick up on that one?
No, I just remember I remember all the crowbar crap of them trying to move the rail lines to get the cart so they didn't have to jump on it and stuff. That's all I really remember.
Okay, that's all I had for stolen. I'm sure I missed some other stuff, but
let's see.
So we got
Is there anything in the house stolen? Anything on the way to the train? Anything with Otis? Anything with Boone? Ned, Sam, Butch? I'm trying to go through the characters, see if anything was stolen. I can't think of anything. Does Lucius steal anything?
Just his innocence.
Yeah, isn't? Yeah, but I mean, don't know if that's something physical or not.
Yeah. All right, so let's go with those three things. We have the 25 cents, we have the horse, we have the chicken ladder.
Okay.
Okay. Any other talking points that you had for this week?
Let's end with one more sort of quote. What is pug knuckling? End scene. Lucius wants to know what pug knuckling is.
He darn well knows what pug knuckling is now.
He does now. And that is the grossest description ever.
And how horrible too is that Otis was selling looks of his aunt doing this.
Yeah. For what, a nickel or a dime or something like that?
Ooh. Yeah, that made my skin crawl a little bit there.
I thought it was hilarious, but a little pervert. Pug knuckling. What is pug knuckling?
23 skidoo. 23 skidoo.
And Otis strips that innocence out of poor little Lucius.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Well, for next week, we are doing chapters 9 through 10 of the Reivers. We're only going to do 2, and then we'll follow it up with 11 through 13.
And our conclusion and our thoughts and our ranking and all that good stuff. So that might even be longer than a normal episode.
We'll see. We got to figure out what our format is. I don't even know what our format would be for that. So obviously these are meant to be the in-depth, let's really talk about a book, because I could not break down a book for you and give it the justice it deserves if I just read a whole book and then a book like this and then tried to do a complete review. It just wouldn't work.
No. But that last one has to be epic.
So, if you'd like to hear more on that, guys, and if you want to follow up some more of our October reads, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us out as a small channel trying to grow and to help us on our mission to help people to talk about books more rather than just read them. We think it's important for us to get our ideas out there and start discussing things. So with that, 23 skidoo!
Peace, guys.